Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're tackling SME marketing. It's a topic that might not sound super exciting at first glance.
But trust me,
It's way more interesting than you think.
we've got a whole mess of sources for this one textbook excerpts, some case studies, and even some recent research
Oh,
findings.
what we're really going to try to figure out is why SMEs are kind of like the challenger brands. They often outsmart those big companies.
Oh, I like that. Challenger brands. So we're talking about small to medium enterprises, but just how big of an impact do these SMEs actually have?
It's huge, honestly. I think we tend to focus so much on big corporations, but, in the UK, for example, SMEs make up something like 90% of all employers.
Wow, 90%? That's a lot.
It is. And that translates to, get this, roughly half of the whole workforce. So we're talking a major, major economic engine here.
Okay, so that really drives home why we need to understand this whole SME marketing thing. But before we get too far, let's define our terms here a bit.
Yeah, good point. What exactly makes an SME an SME? It's got to be more than just like being small.
Right. It's not just about size, it's more about the ownership structure, and those close relationships they tend to have with their customers.
Hmm.
And a lot of times the owner is also the manager. So that whole dynamic really shapes how they approach marketing and really the whole business.
And speaking of shaping the business, one of our sources pointed out something kind of, well, daunting. Over 50% of SMEs fail in the first 4 years.
Yeah, that's a sobering statistic for sure.
It is. So how much of that comes down to marketing? Like, is getting marketing right that crucial?
Oh, absolutely. That stat just shows how important it is to get this stuff right.
Mhm.
It's literally the difference between sinking or swimming in a competitive market.
So it sounds like we've got a real David versus Goliath situation brewing in the marketing arena. SMEs on one side,
Right.
large enterprises or LSEs on the other.
Exactly.
But who's got the edge in terms of marketing? Who's more agile?
Well, you've got to give large enterprises credit. They have big budgets, economies of scale, but that can actually work against them too.
How so?
They get stuck.
Yeah.
All that bureaucracy.
Uh-huh. That makes sense.
SMEs, though, they can be super flexible.
They can just pivot and adapt, huh?
Exactly. They react quickly to whatever the market throws at them.
So nimble and innovative then. And our sources actually had this great quote from Michael Jordan. He's the founder of Dank Zero in South Africa.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
He really shook things up, offered zero fees, and all these super transparent app-driven services.
It's a classic example.
Classic SME disruption.
Right. They found a way to trump those big resources with a good idea.
Exactly. But it doesn't always have to be about these big disruptive moves.
No, not at all.
SMEs can also be like lean and creative in their day-to-day marketing.
Oh, absolutely.
They often can't afford to do all that fancy market research.
Right.
So they have to rely more on direct customer interaction.
Like, think about your hairdresser. They get instant feedback just by talking to clients all day. What's trending? What do people like? No need for a focus group.
That's a great analogy. And our sources actually had this really inspiring case study, Mogo Sishoin.
Ah, the lazy McCody.
Yes, she started small, teaching friends how to cook traditional South African dishes.
That's amazing.
Word of mouth, and now she's got cookbooks, a booming business.
It's a great story.
It really shows how starting small and building those personal connections can lead to big things.
For sure.
But it's not just about what's happening outside the business, right?
You're hitting on a key point there.
Our sources talked about the internal environment too.
Right. All the things going on inside the SME.
So the owner's skills, their attitude, even their personal network, those can have a big impact too.
They absolutely can. But we can't forget about the external stuff either.
Oh, of course.
Ah.
All those outside forces,
Like, the political and economic climate, that can throw a wrench in the gears.
like with Brexit.
Exactly. Our research showed how Brexit really hit UK SMEs hard. And it wasn't just like a general feeling of uncertainty either.
Right.
The source had hard data. I think a significant percentage of SMEs put their expansion plans on hold because of all the unknowns around Brexit.
Wow. So external factors can really make or break things.
No doubt. But even with all those external forces, there's one thing SMEs can control:
And that is
understanding their customer, really getting inside their head,
our sources called it getting into their AIOs.
their activities, interests, and opinions.
Right. But that sounds kind of jargony. What does it really mean?
It's really just about understanding your customer's lifestyle.
Okay.
How do they spend their time and money?
What are their passions?
Exactly. What keeps them up at night? What do they value? Those are the questions you need to answer.
And this was really brought home in the case study about ethnic consumers in the UK.
Yes. It showed how important it is to look beyond just basic demographics.
Age, income, that kind of thing.
Right. To connect with people, you need to understand the deeper cultural trends too, how those influence what people buy.
So we've got the big picture now. We know what makes SMEs tick. We see how understanding the customer is key.
Now we can get to the fun stuff.
Now, let's get tactical. Our sources spend a lot of time on the marketing mix,
The classic 4 Ps: product, price, distribution, and marketing communication.
Right, the 4 Ps. So where should SMEs focus their efforts within each of those?
When it comes to product, SMEs need to figure out what makes them stand out. Our sources talked about these 3 product levels: core, actual, and augmented.
Okay, I need those broken down for me.
Sure. So the core product is basically the benefits someone gets. Like for a car,
Yeah.
it's transportation.
Makes sense.
The actual product is the thing itself, the brand, the features, the design of that specific car. And then you've got the augmented product.
And that's,
Everything around the product: warranties, customer service, all that.
I see.
By understanding these levels, SMEs can figure out where they can add extra value.
So like an SME that sells handmade soaps could focus on the augmented level.
Yes.
They could offer gift wrapping or a loyalty program.
Perfect example. And beyond those levels, there's all the factors that make people buy new products. Like, is it better than what's already out there? Is it easy to use? Can people see others using it? Can they try it out?
So if I'm launching a new product, it can't be too complicated.
Right. It's got to be easy for people to get their heads around.
Okay, but even the best product won't sell if the price is off.
You're telling me.
And our sources mention some legal stuff that SMEs need to keep in mind.
Like those price discrimination laws.
Yeah, those. Don't want to get in trouble.
Not worth it.
But beyond the legal stuff, how should SMEs think about pricing?
Strategically. It's not just about covering your costs.
It's got to be tied to your bigger business goals then.
Absolutely. Do you want to make the most profit per unit? Or maybe you want to grab market share quickly? Or become the premium option? These are the questions you need to ask yourself.
So different goals mean different pricing strategies.
Exactly. Like you've got return on investment pricing, where you're focused on a specific profit margin, or there's markup pricing, where you just add a fixed percentage on top of your costs.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk about distribution, then how SMEs get their products out there.
In today's world, e-commerce has been a total game changer.
I can imagine. It's got to be huge for SMEs.
It is. Low setup costs, reaching a global audience, it levels the playing field.
And one of our sources had this cool example of craft breweries.
Oh, yeah, they're getting creative.
They use online sales, direct delivery, local partnerships. They're doing it all.
It shows how you can blend the digital and the physical.
But no matter how great your product is, how good your pricing and distribution are, you still need to get the word out.
Marketing communications.
That's where SMEs often shine, right?
They do. They have that personal touch that big companies just can't replicate.
It's all about building those relationships, right?
That's at the heart of it.
And social media seems perfect for that.
It is. You can target specific audiences, have conversations, and drive sales directly.
So we've covered the 4 Ps,
Mm.
but our sources pointed out that there's more to this story.
There is.
It's not just about the traditional marketing mix. We need to think bigger.
There's a whole other layer of strategy involved.
Okay, what does that look like? What are some of the things that SMEs need to consider beyond the 4 Ps?
Well, one biggie is relationship marketing, building those long-term connections.
Like, it's cheaper to keep a customer than to find a new one.
That's it. And that's super relevant for SMEs.
Every customer counts.
Every single one. And that's where relationship marketing needs to be part of everything they do.
But it's not just external relationships, right? Our sources talked about internal marketing, too.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Focusing on your employees.
That's an interesting concept. How does that work practically?
It's all about happy employees leading to happy customers.
So, treating employees well, giving them the tools they need to excel.
That's it. Creating that positive environment.
Not just free pizza.
Well, free pizza's nice,
I mean, I wouldn't say no to it.
but it's more than that.
Beeper, yeah.
It's about culture, making people feel valued.
There was that case study in our sources about the SME owner who wanted to open on Sundays.
Remember that one?
Yeah, but the employees weren't happy about it.
It messed with their work-life balance.
Exactly.
And for some, it was a religious thing, too.
So it's a great example of how a decision that seems purely business-focused can have all these ripple effects,
It really shows why considering your employees' perspectives is so important,
especially for SMEs.
where you really rely on everyone's dedication.
And speaking of navigating different perspectives, our sources talked about cross-cultural marketing too.
Right, a whole other deep dive waiting to happen there.
Yeah, feels like it. Languages, customs, values.
It gets complex, but our sources had some good advice for SMEs. Many find success by going niche.
Instead of trying to appeal to everyone.
Exactly. Find that smaller segment and really tailor your marketing.
And the sources also stressed the importance of networking.
Can't learn everything from reports, you know?
You need to talk to people.
Exactly. Get those real insights, build trust.
There was that quote from a textile exporter who said his network gave him insights that no data could ever replicate.
He was spot on.
It all comes back to relationships.
The heart of business.
Okay, but now let's look ahead. How can SMEs future-proof their marketing,
That's the million-dollar question.
especially with all this rapid technological change?
Digital transformation is reshaping everything.
E-commerce, online marketing, all that.
It's not just about adopting the latest tool, though.
It's a mindset shift then.
Exactly. SMEs need to leverage this stuff to their advantage.
How can they make sure they're not just keeping up, but actually getting ahead?
Data's a big one.
SMEs need to get comfortable with data.
They do. It's about collecting it, analyzing it, using
But
it.
so many still rely on gut feeling, you know?
I know. But data can back that up, or sometimes show you something you never even considered.
And thankfully, there are a lot of affordable tools out there now.
That make it easier than ever to get started.
It's like democratizing data analysis.
Right. Leveling the playing field.
But it's not just data, right?
Nope. Sustainability marketing is huge, too.
Consumers are getting more and more aware of environmental issues.
And they're looking for businesses that share their values.
So SMEs need to get on board with this
They do. And they're actually well-positioned to do it.
because they're more agile.
Exactly. They can respond faster to those shifting preferences.
But it's not just about recycled packaging, right?
No, it's got to be deeper than that.
It's about weaving sustainability into your brand's DNA.
Exactly. And communicating that authentically.
No greenwashing allowed.
Consumers can see right through that.
So digital transformation, sustainability. What else?
Ethical considerations are getting really important too.
Consumers are holding businesses accountable.
And SMEs are not exempt.
There was that example of the loan shark in our sources.
A stark reminder that even a small business can do a lot of damage.
Or a lot of good. It's not just about following the law,
It's about doing what's right,
even when it's hard.
even when no one's watching.
But ultimately, being ethical is good for business too.
Absolutely. It builds trust.
With customers, employees, the community.
It all comes back around.
So we've covered a lot here, the basics of SME marketing, the trends, shaping the future.
A whirlwind tour.
But with all this talk of tech and data and global trends, it's easy to forget about the human element.
You're right. We can't lose sight of that.
At the end of the day, business is about people, isn't it?
It is. Connecting with people, understanding them, building relationships.
That's what makes SMEs special.
That personal touch.
But in this increasingly digital world, how can SMEs hold on to that?
That's the challenge.
It's a balancing act.
It is.
Technology can be amazing, but you don't want to lose that human touch that makes SMEs so unique.
You've got it. It is. It's a challenge. A lot of businesses are struggling with that. Not just SMEs either. Our sources really highlighted how we need to think of tech as a tool.
To enhance what humans can do, not replace them.
You got it.
So we're not just handing the keys over to the robots.
Definitely not. Humans are still essential. Think about AI, right?
Okay.
It's amazing for data identifying trends.
But it's still up to a human to make sense of it all.
Exactly. Make those strategic decisions.
A human brings context,
Creativity.
all those nuances that a machine just doesn't get.
And it's the same with automation. Great for those boring, repetitive tasks, but you've got to make sure it doesn't make things feel, I don't know, impersonal for the customer.
Our sources talked about finding the right balance.
Automate where it makes sense.
Yeah.
But keep the customer's journey in mind.
When does that human touch really matter?
That's the key question. Maybe it's a handwritten note, a quick check-in if someone's having trouble. Little things like that make a big difference.
People connect with people.
Oh,
We crave that human touch.
it's what makes SMEs so special.
Our sources really hammered that home.
It sets them apart, you know, from those big faceless corporations.
So as we wrap this up, I think there's a clear message here.
Embrace tech, but don't let it run the show.
Use it to your advantage. But remember what makes your business unique.
Be authentic, be passionate, be human. That's how you succeed. And remember, the learning never stops.
The world of business never stands still.
So be flexible.
Adapt,
But some things are timeless. Building relationships,
understanding your customer.
delivering real value.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of SME marketing.
Hope you found it insightful.
Inspiring, even.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning. It really is finding that balance. Our sources, they talked about how technology can be used to, really enhance those human capabilities.
Not replace them, though.
Exactly.
So it's not about just throwing AI at every problem.
Not at all. AI can be a powerful tool,
Sure.
but it takes a human to interpret those insights,
Make those judgment calls.
Right. AI might point you in a direction, but it's the human marketer who decides where to go.
It's that blend of data and intuition.
Exactly. And think about automation.
Okay. Yeah.
Great for efficiency, but you don't want to create a cold, impersonal experience.
Right. Our sources talked about that.
Finding that balance.
Yeah, where does automation make sense?
And where does that human touch really matter?
A handwritten note, a phone call.
Those little things can build so much loyalty.
People crave that connection, that feeling of being understood,
It's something technology can't replicate.
no matter how fancy it gets.
Exactly. And that's where SMEs really have an advantage.
They're built on relationships.
They get their customer.
It's that human-centric approach that sets them apart.
It really is their superpower.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot.
embrace technology, but don't let it define you.
Use it as a tool, but stay true to yourself.
Be authentic.
Be passionate.
Be human.
And never stop learning. That's key.
The business world is constantly changing, so we've got to be ready to adapt.
But some things never change, though.
Like the importance of relationships,
Understanding your customer.
delivering real value.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into SME marketing.
It's a fascinating world, and we've just scratched the surface.
Keep diving deep, and we'll see you next time.